Today we're doing Chapter 11, Section 2. This is posting to the accounts receivable ledger, and it's very, very similar to the posting that we did to the accounts payable ledger. First of all, just like in the accounts payable, we have to number our accounts, and it uses 3-digit numbers. The first digit shows the controlling account, which in this case, accounts receivable is an asset, so will be a number 1 for the first digit. The second and third digits show the customer account assigned. When a balance is charged in a customer's account, that's when we assign a number. So here is just a little preview of what it looks like. These are the accounts receivable ledger and the general controlling account. So there's all the accounts within accounts receivable. This is your subsidiary accounts receivable ledger. All these amounts equals the accounts receivable total. If any of these change, this changes, and I'll say that again to you in a minute. Accounts receivable forms, the forms that they use a 3-column accounts receivable ledger that's very similar to the accounts payable ledger you did in 11.1. Accounts receivables are assets, and assets have normal debit balances. Therefore, there's a debit balance column, but in the accounts receivable you don't have a credit balance column because almost always your balance will be a debit. So when you open an account for a customer, it's very similar to what we did in the last chapter. You write the customer name on the heading of the ledger. You get this from the first sales invoice you ever prepared for the customer. You can also put an address on, but a Hobby Shack keeps them in a different file. And the disadvantage to keeping an address on the top of every page is every time you fill a page or get to a new month, you would have to rewrite the address. And then once you write their name, go ahead and write their customer number on the ledger account on the right hand side. So here is an example of one. You just put the customer name here and the customer number. So to open their account, that's all you have to do. Okay, posting from a sales journal to an accounts receivable ledger, all you have to do is each amount in the sales journal is going to be posted to the accounts receivable ledger. Each amount is posted as a debit to the customer account listed in the account debited column. And then Hobby Shack posts frequently, just like they do with their accounts payable, so that if a customer would call in and say, "What's my balance?" they could easily go to their balance in the accounts receivable ledger and find it. So here on November 3rd, we have Village Crafts, so we put November 3rd down here. We won't put anything in this column. This came from Sales Journal, which is S, page 11, S11. The amount we're debiting is for $572.40, and our total now is, we had a debit balance of $318, and now we're adding $572.40, so it's $890.40. Next, we're showing how to post from the cash receipts journal to the accounts receivable journal. This is the cash receipts journal. You'll see right here on the 15th, Fairview Church, so we go to their ledger. It's 1:30, so we see it there. So all this happened on the 15th. Nothing in the item column. This came from the cash receipts, CR, journal 11. Page 11 is right there. And then this is an accounts receivable credit. So we're going to credit here $380, which means they paid us, or $381.60, which means that's the amount they paid us. We subtract that off what was our balance, and our new balance is $1908. Entries in a general journal may affect balances in the accounts receivable journal. It says may because it's possible that you could have stuff in the general journal that doesn't have anything that goes into accounts receivables. In this instance, we had a sales return and allowances. So we have debited sales return and allowances, sales tax payable, and we have credited accounts receivable Village Crafts. So now we have to post that to Village Crafts so they don't end up paying that $62.01. So first we have the date, which is the 11th. It came from the general journal, which is G, page 11. They're not normally all the same page, but all the journals are in this instance. And they excuse me, they paid us 6201, so in here we're crediting 6201, and now they only owe us 3,377.69 because we subtracted that from the 3,439.79. Then you'll notice you have a slash up here because we'll get to that later, but you take, here's after this slash here in the account title is Village Crafts. Village Crafts is being posted to, this transaction is being posted to account number 150. So Village Crafts is on the right hand side of the slash. The 150 goes on the right hand side of the slash. Here is a completed accounts receivable journal with all the amounts. So whatever everybody owes us is also the amount in our accounts receivable ledger. If we added each one of these balances up, that would be the amount of our accounts receivables. Then at the end, just like in our accounts payables, we have to approve our accounts receivable ledger. So instead of a schedule of accounts payable, we have a schedule of accounts receivable. It's just a listing of all the customer accounts, their balances, and the total amounts due from all customers. This is prepared after all the general entries are posted. The schedule of accounts receivable must total the total of the accounts receivable. Let me restate that. Schedule of accounts receivable total and the total accounts receivable in the general ledger must match. So in other words, the controlling account balance has to equal the sum of all of these parts. So here is your accounts receivable ledger. Hobby Shack Inc. is the who, schedule of accounts receivable is the what, and the when is November 30th. Here are all the people that we have in our accounts receivables that owe us money, or all the businesses. Here's the amount that they currently owe us, and here's the total accounts receivables. So that should do it for 11-2.